There is a potential legal battle brewing about this disc made by one of the biggest companies in the sport and this disc made by one of the smallest. But how has this never happened before? Or has it? Hey everyone, it's Greg from Six-Sided Discs, and this is the Axiom SimonLine Prototype. Yep, that is actually the name of this disc. It even says that right here on the PDGA approval page. But why? Well, this story starts with one of the biggest names in all of disc golf, Simon Lizotte. While Paul McBeth has the World Championships and Gannon Buhr is the up-and-coming dominant force, Simon Lizotte is undeniably the people's choice for most popular player in disc golf. His autograph lines are the longest, his YouTube channel at over 200,000 subscribers is the biggest of any individual player, and his departure from Discmania and subsequent signing with MVP made waves in 2023, when he signed a 10-year sponsorship deal reportedly worth $1 million a year. Now, MVP has some experience with big-name players, having signed James Conrad from Innova about 6 months before he threw the greatest shot in the history of our sport. The later development of the Conrad line by MVP has led to some of their most popular discs in years, including the Detour and Trail. Thus far, the very appropriately named SimonLine has introduced two molds that occupy staple slots in players' bags. They kicked off the SimonLine with the Time-Lapse, MVP's first 12-speed disc, rated at 12.5-13, and you probably recognize those flight numbers as the same as the most popular distance driver in the sport, the Innova Destroyer. Next up for the SimonLine was the Pixel, with a micro bead and similar shape to the P2. Simon's preferred putter while he was with Discmania. The Pixel and Time-Lapse have been bestsellers here at Six-Sided Discs, and I'm sure the same is true for most retailers. Which takes us to this, the third disc in the SimonLine, the SimonLine Prototype. And it seems there isn't anything straightforward about the SimonLine Prototype. MVP released a statement on its development, in which they said the original intention was to create a beaded midrange that fit between the Axiom Pyro, which is a fairly overstable midrange, and the MVP Reactor, a straight to slightly overstable midrange. However, things don't always go according to plan, and while they were very happy with the SimonLine Prototype's shape and hand feel, they weren't happy with its stability. Because as it turns out, the stability was way too close to the torque resistance and overstability of the Pyro, which means that the SimonLine Prototype will only be available as a one-time release in this year's Gyropalooza box, which came out December 11th in the United States and December 17th internationally. So one of the big questions is, should you buy one? And if so, how? Well, you have two options. Drop $130 on a Gyropalooza box, or wait and see how much the secondhand market tries to charge for this one-time release from everyone's favorite player. If the limited release of the Time-Lapse Prototype is anything to go off of, then the SimonLine Prototype could fetch anywhere from $40 to over $100. But then again, being so overstable, it may not appeal to lower arm speed amateur players, which could hurt the resale value. If you do opt for the Gyropalooza box, what exactly do you get for $130? Well, in addition to the SimonLine Prototype, you get a special edition 11-speed Vanish, an understable distance driver in Total Eclipse plastic. You also get the special edition Eclipse Parachute from Streamline, which is an overstable counterpart to the hybrid Toss and Catch Glitch. You also get two R2 Neutron discs, their recycled blend. Most of these molds have not been released in R2 Neutron plastic before. And finally, you get 6 Lab Second discs, which is MVP's version of factory seconds, or misprints. That's 11 discs for $130 or $11.80 each. Not too shabby. But what if you want a mid-range that's actually just slightly overstable, called the Balance, that's available on the market right now for $21 plus shipping? Well, then you can get this, the Essential Discs Balance. Essential Discs has been around in some form or fashion since 2010. Started in North Carolina, Essential Discs co-founder Larry Leonardi began offering clinics and coaching before moving to Lansing, Michigan in 2011. Over the past decade or so, they've been involved in tournament direction, coaching, player sponsorship, course design, and much more. Their first mold, the Honey, was approved by the PDGA in 2014. An overstable approach disc rated at 4303, the Honey is a little bit funny to look at now. The stamp on this particular disc has a B graphic that looks exactly like something I've seen on a Discraft Wasp or Buzz. The name and font would fit perfectly in the Clash Discs lineup. I mean, they have the Wild Honey, which probably explains why they had to add Wild to the name. And the flight number graphic on this Honey is the exact same template used today by Luft Discs on all of their molds. It mirrors the appearance of an element from the periodic table. But of course, the Honey predates all three of these. Enough about the Honey though. Essential Discs went on to have 6 discs approved by the PDGA in 2023, with 2 more, the Balance and Reflection, added in the summer of 2024. The Balance is rated at 5501.5 and comes in a premium translucent plastic blend that looks similar to MVP's Proton, but doesn't quite feel the same. It's much softer and more flexible. There are 2 other things though that I found curious about Essential Discs and the Balance itself. Something I've mentioned often about MVP's discs are these markings along the side. It's a result of their proprietary manufacturing process. Something we actually got to see on camera in the first video released by Destin of Smarter Every Day as he toured their facility. So far as we can tell, these manufacturing marks are only visible on discs manufactured by MVP, which would be for their 3 brands, MVP, Axiom, or Streamline, as well as Remix Disc Golf, Mint Discs, most of the discs from ThoughtSpace Athletics, and some Jester Disc Golf molds as well. But what's interesting is we found the same markings on the Essential Discs Balance. The other interesting thing I found was a picture on their website of one of their approved discs, the Rain, which bears an uncanny resemblance to MVP's plasma plastic. Now, I want to be clear that I'm speculating a bit here because we don't actually know who manufactures Essential Discs. It could be a variety of companies, but all of this seems to suggest that at some point, some Essential Discs could have been manufactured by MVP. But with this now likely moving into a legal battle between the two, who knows what the long-term future of these 2 discs looks like. The shape of the Essential Balance, which to my eye and my hand is very nearly the exact same as the Discmania MD3, without the microbead on the rim at least, is quite comfortable and familiar. And I also find that particularly interesting. In the greater context of this balance versus balance, Simon, who played for Discmania for over 10 years, regularly threw and bagged an MD3. And MVP's plan to introduce a disc that fits between the reactor and pyro sounds a lot like the old MD3, which was rated at 5502. Maybe the exact stability MVP was aiming for. However, unlike the SimonLine Balance Prototype, the Essential Discs Balance does fly as intended. Thrown flat, it pushes straight for some time before finding a moderate fade. On hyzer, it holds that angle smoothly, never showing any sign of turning, but also gets plenty of smooth fade. And on anhyzer, it gently holds that shape and pushes forward for a smooth flight. Looking at that side by side though with the SimonLine Balance Prototype, there's quite a noticeable difference in stability. The Prototype is super overstable. On just about any angle, it is aggressively moving left and flies a lot like the Pyro that I've thrown before. But of course, the elephant in the room here is the situation around these names. But as it turns out, they're not the first pair of discs to have basically the same name. In the summer of 2023, I placed an order for a few discs from the Disc Golf Pro Tour that included some molds from Gateway. One of those was, of course, the timeless and popular Wizard, and the other 2 were newer molds that I wasn't familiar with: the Devilhawk and the Dreamweaver, one word, penned as DW on the inside rim. But to my confusion, everywhere that I searched online for Dreamweaver, one word, I found this disc, not made by Gateway. This is the Dreamweaver, 2 words, from Jester Disc Golf, and they had it approved by the PDGA before Gateway did. And perhaps because there wasn't a big name player involved, or because these 2 discs are so different, one overstable distance driver versus a neutral fairway driver, this issue went largely unpublished in disc golf media. Gateway changed the name of the Dreamweaver, one word, to the Realm, and that was that. But the balance is a little bit different because the PDGA has already approved the Essential Discs balance, which is why MVP submitted their current iteration of the balance as the, quote, SimonLine Balance Prototype. Now, according to the PDGA's disc certification request form, to have the production of a disc approved for certification, the equipment manufacturer must submit at least 3 samples to the PDGA Technical Standards Working Group. Part of this process is to, quote, scan the approved disc list, making sure your proposed disc name is not too similar to a previously approved disc name. But this is where things get interesting, because the PDGA goes on to say that the PDGA does not referee name conflicts. Please resolve any naming issues with the previously approved manufacturer before your new disc can be approved. And this is where things start to get a little bit complicated with the balance situation. Essential Discs obviously has the name approved by the PDGA, but MVP Disc Sports began to register trademarks on future SimonLine disc names some time ago. All of the disc names in the SimonLine relate to photography and videography, which Simon is both passionate about and something he credits much of his success to, throwing incredible shots on camera. And therefore, MVP began registering these trademarks for future SimonLine discs. On their website, or linked from their website, that list includes all of the following future potential disc names: Balance, Bokeh, Lens, Lens Cap, Shutter, Aspect, Boost, Turbulence, and Mirror. The PDGA approved the balance by Essential Discs on May 27, 2024. However, MVP registered their trademark for balance about 6 months earlier on December 13, 2023. So who's right? And who should get to use this disc moving forward? Well, it's a great question, but I'm not a lawyer. Luckily, though, in the disc golf world, there is someone who is. Discgolf.law is a great channel that covers disc golf through the legal lens with knowledge and expertise in that space. So if you want to learn more specifically about the legal questions surrounding these two discs, their names, trademarks, and so on, make sure you check that video out. I'll put a link to it in the video description. For now, though, this potential legal battle probably doesn't mean anything for the average player. All they have to do is decide if they want to throw either of these discs or not. What are your thoughts on this whole balance situation? Have you thrown any discs from Essential Discs? Let us know in the comments below. And also comment below what other discs we should explore in the future. For Six Sided Discs, I'm Greg. We'll see you in the next one. Enough about the honey, though. The metal is for a reason. No. Whoa! Course maintenance. If you like this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, or supporting us on Patreon. Your support makes this content possible.